Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests, and welcome to our third meeting of this new Rotary year. Today marks our second in a series of programs that will address education, and we are thrilled and honored today to be joined by President Stephanie Herseth Sandlin of Augustana University. Before we begin today's program with President Herseth Sandlin, I'd like to begin with Rotary's four-way test. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Our guest today is President Stephanie Herseth Sandlin, the 24th president of Augustana University, a position she has held since 2017. President Herseth Sandlin, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be with you, with members of Downtown Rotary in Sioux Falls and others across the state. It's a privilege to be with you, Jason.
Oh, thank you. The privilege is ours. President Herseth Sandlin, there is a lot going on in the world. However, before COVID and the whole host of other challenges that 2020 has brought to us, Augustana was embarking on a very exciting and challenging new path. We're going to be talking a lot about that during our conversation today, but I don't want to be too presumptuous. You are a well-known South Dakotan, and everybody knows, a lot of people know you personally. But before we get started, could you maybe fill our viewers in on your background and experiences and how that has prepared you to lead Augustana forward, particularly during this unique moment in time?
Well, I would be happy to, and I won't take up too much time. It really comes down, as I think it does for so many of us as South Dakotans, to a sense of place. And my sense of place is northeastern South Dakota on the farm where I grew up. My dad's still farming because farmers, as we all know, never really retire. But that's where it started. And when I went off to school, I did go out east to Georgetown and our nation's capital, and I think it helped me appreciate even more that sense of place, of belonging, of ties to the land, of smaller rural communities, of a state that in many ways is one big extended family. And so to have the opportunity to serve South Dakota in Congress, having blended those experiences, both of my upbringing with my time at Georgetown University in an urban setting and very diverse setting, but being a voice on behalf of a state in the Great Plains that a lot of people don't know enough about. And what I had experienced in Congress, I think, is certainly helping apply a set of skills and knowledge here at Augustana, both in terms of the importance of relationships in your own party and across the aisle, that so many of the challenges or opportunities we have don't break down along partisan lines, that these are often regional issues with a shared set of aspirations and values and how a Great Plains state fits in to a very diverse country. And I think that my time serving during the recession after the 2008 bailouts of Wall Street and the auto industry, and how we were working to get the economy out of its downward spiral, certainly helps give me context for what we're doing in a setting that's also economically challenged because of the pandemic. I also became a mom while I was serving in Congress. That has certainly helped prepare me to be in higher education and learning from those in the K through 12 system as well, and education professionals that help us cultivate learning with our children. And my time at Raven Industries, if I hadn't had that opportunity, 5 years of serving alongside a talented corporate leadership team, I don't think I would have been as well prepared to serve Augustana as I am now, because that blend of public experience, private sector experience allows me to work in a way with a team of people at Augustana, many of whom are long serving, some of whom are newer to our team, and to blend perspectives and experiences to help us not only develop the roadmap, which we developed and we'll talk about with the Viking Bold strategic plan, but now steering effectively in the middle of the storm that we find ourselves in the first few months of our new plan.
Big storm, and you're only 3 years into the role. You're faced with this once a century event. As I mentioned, you're the 24th president of Augustana University. Did I get that right? 24th.
24th, yes.
The university was founded in 1860, which means Augustana has survived wars and pandemics going back since before the Civil War. I just want to underscore that point. That's a long time and a rich history. Can you tell us about that history of Augustana and why it has not only survived 160 years, but thrived?
Well, I think the answer to that question is because of the flexibility and adaptability of the university, its leaders, and its community. Augustana University had multiple locations. We started in Chicago and we made our way in a rather circuitous way up and down, but west. And we merged with the Lutheran Normal School in 1918 in the middle of the pandemic, Spanish flu pandemic. World War II was also marking that time in history. So it was a really turbulent time. But when you think about Augustana's history, the different moves, I think it reflects the premium on flexibility, on recognizing there might be opportunities if we take some risks and move our university west, that there might be some challenges to remaining in a certain location or not merging based on some of what was happening back during those times. And so I think that working through what we've been working through the last few months, flexibility, again, is the name of the game. I mean, that's the name of our plan for the fall semester, the Viking Flex plan. But I think during all of that change, right, and the toll that had to have taken on faculty and administrators and students of moving locations, certainly it was contentious when the merger happened in 1918, the concern about one community over the other being selected for the location and how you bring that together smoothly. But we always stayed firmly grounded, as I have immersed myself in Augustana's history, in its mission and core values. And I think this intangible sense of place, again, that doesn't necessarily mean you're tied to a specific location, but a sense of place of community, of a campus community, of people who are called to this campus community to teach and to learn, and what it is we're preparing our graduates for, whether that was in the 19th century or the 20th century or now the 21st century.
Flexibility and community, two things that I heard you talking about. We'll talk a little bit more about that as you get in deeper to the Viking Bold strategic plan. Before we go into that, though, I just would, I and I know others are just interested in the programs that maybe you have brought forward or others have brought forward just in the last few years. Are there a couple programs that you would just want to highlight that are new or expanding that the viewers would be interested in maybe knowing more about?
I think so. I think your viewers will be interested in knowing more about a few of our new degrees, one of which was established under my predecessor, Rob Oliver, who many of your viewers know as well. And that was, again, an opportunity with a legacy partner of Sanford Health and a gift for Sanford Imagenetics made by T. Denny Sanford for genomics. And one of our alums, Dr. Jean Hoyme, a geneticist, alum of Augustana, 1972, really helped deepen that partnership for establishing a master's in genetic counseling degree here at Augustana. And the cohort size for our degrees are larger than some public university masters of genetic counseling degrees. And that really reflects the nature of this relationship. Again, having not just this location, but relationships in San Diego that Dr. Hoyme brought to the table. So we're attracting applicants from all over the country for these 10 spots per year. And it's this emerging field of medicine that's been exciting to so many in serving not only the Sanford health system, but other health systems throughout the country. We also have a new MBA program that we're launching this fall. There has been long been an appetite among our alumni and others in Sioux Falls, throughout South Dakota, the region, for an Augustana MBA. And other universities have strong MBA programs as well. So we wanted to differentiate our MBA program. It is a 4+1 program to start to serve our current undergraduate students. And that cohort is already full. We have a terrific new program director, Dr. Anissa Gehring, who's joined us to run this new program, working alongside terrific folks in our business department who helped develop the program. And the differentiator really is this leadership piece, organizational leadership. That's what we kept hearing from stakeholders and partners who want this degree program, and what they felt was Augustana's niche in an offering. So it'll be a 2-year program starting in the summer of 2021, but we're very excited about that. We also have 2 undergraduate programs. They're interdisciplinary in nature, medical humanities and environmental studies, and a great interest among our undergraduates and prospective students in those areas. And we have a doctorate of physical therapy program, our first doctorate at Augustana that we're looking to establish and develop. I shouldn't say looking to, we're in the process of, we're in the accreditation queue. Again, we have a terrific program director, Dr. Matt Volansky. And this is a hybrid program. So it's an accelerated doctorate of physical therapy. It is online, both synchronous and asynchronous, but there are immersion labs over the course of the 23 months where students across the Upper Great Plains Basin or elsewhere in the country fly into Minneapolis, St. Paul, and do their immersion labs over a course of 7 to 11 days. So it's really innovative, it's really exciting. We're part of a consortium with Tufts University and with Baylor University and others serving our market, our region with Evidence in Motion, a higher education partner in the physical therapy space.
Oh, that's great. A lot going on at Augustana. And then you got this whole strategic plan, you know, that the 10-year plan, Viking Bold. And on December 9th of 2019, you and Augustana announced Viking Bold. I know that came after a year where some announcements were made. It is a bold initiative for any university. Can you tell our viewers more about that plan, its components, and what it will bring not only to the students, but really the city of Sioux Falls and the surrounding area?
Thanks for the question. It is an exciting plan, and we announced aspirational goals after dreaming, envisioning together in my first year as president, and then the board unanimously endorsed the plan, as you mentioned, back in December of 2019. Decade-long journey, right? The journey to 2030. Who would have guessed that the steepest, rockiest part of our journey would be in the first few months? But we are making progress nonetheless, even though there's a detour every now and then, so we don't get stuck, right? But it's very exciting. As an academic enterprise, we are focused on academics. Everything related to this plan is to elevate the profile of the university as it relates to our existing academic programs and continue to innovate and deepen partnerships to establish new academic programs across degree spectrums, across disciplines, interdisciplinary, in order to continue to serve future generations of students, because every generation encounters different possibilities, different challenges, different needs, and we want to be able to keep a pace. And I think, as I explained, the doctorate of physical therapy program, that's an example of being on the cutting edge of what some are doing and finding good partners, and the dedicated faculty we currently have and finding them more colleagues to be able to deliver quality academic programming in creative vehicles in different ways that meet students' needs and expectations. So the core pillar, again, grounded in our core values of liberal arts, of our Christian tradition is affiliated with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, excellence, service, and community. So grounded in those core values and our enduring mission, we are looking to modernize the academic structure in ways that really allow us to interact and engage with students in the community even more. Okay, this strategic plan is in large measure informed not just by who Augustana is, our reputation for academic excellence, the dedicated community we have on campus. It's the fact that we are in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a growing, vibrant community that values our mission, that values our community on campus, and values our alumni. And so how can we continue to serve not just the 18 to 22-year-old segment? How can we continue to partner effectively? So yes, we're looking at more degree offerings for undergraduates, but more graduate program offerings. We're looking at the possibility of pathway programs in associate degree programs. One of our steering committees came up with that idea during the planning. We're looking at certificate programs, one of which we're already set to deploy to businesses and others here in Sioux Falls and across South Dakota and the region. So academics is the focus, with schools, School of Music, School of Education are the two first schools that we've announced. We also are looking to establish a School of Business, a School of Health Professions, but all of the four-year degree-seeking students will come in as students of the College of Arts and Sciences. And then as they choose their majors and their disciplines, then they will gravitate to take courses across the schools. The schools then will help, again, across the spectrum of different degrees in serving students over the course of their journeys academically that aren't always just confined to a four-year period of time. So that's the academics piece. We also want to grow enrollment. Now we're currently at around 2,000 students, but we know that with graduate student enrollment, with some of the other pathways we're looking at and our location in Sioux Falls and the generosity of our alumni, we believe we can grow enrollment over the course of a decade to be at 3,000 students. That seems like a significant jump. I get it. People are like, what about the demographic projections? But keep in mind, some of these degree programs at the graduate level will serve in a hybrid way a much broader student base. The cohorts will be larger, and I believe that most of the growth will be in the number of graduate students that we serve. We also need to look at strategic scholarships with our alumni, with business, so that we can help bridge the gap financially for more students to afford an education at Augustana University. And we've gotten great traction on that front in our campaign with impact scholarships. And then we have the Division I athletics transition. We have had great success at the Division II level, 5 national championships, 3 of which came just in the last few years, team championships in baseball, softball, and basketball. But people who are listening probably remember when Augustana was in the North Central Conference and competed against schools like South Dakota State and University of South Dakota, who are now in Division I. And this isn't just about doing what they're doing. This is about the fact that Augustana deliberately decided not to transition when those schools did, but we never decided we would never transition. And we knew we had to position ourselves to the point in time when we thought it might make sense to revisit that in about 10 years, this was back in 2006, that we would be better positioned to make that transition. And that's exactly what we've done, is we've made steady increase investments in the athletics budget that have helped us achieve this type of success. At the same time, Sioux Falls continues to grow and continues to grow. And we know that both the arts and our School of Music, but athletics and a transition to Division I really take advantage of the support that Sioux Falls and the surrounding communities give to the arts, to athletics, as part of quality of life in our community, and gives our student athletes that next level of competition, because we've developed a culture of excellence, a culture of competitive excellence, and student athletes who perform amazingly well in the classroom in addition to in competition. And finally, in our physical campus and IT, the pandemic has actually accelerated some of what we have done as it relates to digital fluency and a digital campus and the investment in new technologies that were a necessity last March as we were making those transitions, but certainly now as we get ready to serve students in an unpredictable fall environment with the ongoing pandemic and the things that we continue to learn. We have a new campus master plan, the most comprehensive plan in decades for the university, and we're really looking forward to making the right investments in the years ahead to create the type of learning and living experiences that will serve students most effectively.
That is a bold plan, and I appreciate the fact that you're tackling it. I had some emails. We were talking before the call, and I mentioned that we had some emails from some Rotarians, and I think this is consistent with the conversations in the community. You don't hear as much talk around academics, and as that being a component of the plan. You don't hear as much about the enrollment. You don't hear as much about the digital side. The conversation revolves around athletics and D1 athletics, and oh my gosh, it's so expensive. Can you just talk about how that fits within the plan and how big of a deal it is?
Of course, and it doesn't surprise me that some of our viewers had questions on that. Look, there are television channels and newspaper pages that are dedicated to sports. Okay, so we don't have that same type of focus, and unfortunately maybe in interest, even though we're an academic enterprise. And we believe that a transition to Division I is to enhance Augustana as an excellent academic community that will attract top talent to Augustana and to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and that will elevate our profile in addition to what we're doing with programs like genetic counseling and a doctorate of physical therapy and others that elevate our profile, not just regionally, but nationally. And the Division I milestone goal was to secure an invitation by the end of this calendar year. The decision of the Summit League back at the end of May makes that goal a lot harder to achieve, because they said, we're not going to extend an invite to you at this time. We had a strong application. We had great feedback on our application. All of our trend lines, from enrollment to academic programs to endowment to what we spent on our athletic budget in terms of the financial feasibility for us to do this, our plan for staffing, our plan for fundraising. We believe in that plan, and we believe it's to the benefit of Augustana and to Sioux Falls. And 6 months in, we hit a roadblock, and we're now taking a detour, and we're evaluating other options. There is interest in Augustana once we had announced that we wanted to make this transition. And so just as we're learning more about other conferences want to learn more about us. But we also know that there's a lot of movement in higher education at institutions, both as it relates to their academic offerings, their financial viability, as well as their athletics programs. And so we're willing to be patient, and yet we're not going to just sit back and wait for an invitation. We're going to go seek out what the detour is here. And the detour may take us right back to the Summit League at some point in time, or the detour may take us somewhere else. But during that detour, we are going to continue to compete with excellence in the NSIC, of which we've been a proud member for many years, and a top D2 athletic conference. And so we're going to continue to stay focused on the experience of our student athletes year in and year out. At the same time, we're keeping an eye on the horizon for what that pathway is to achieve this aspirational goal.
Well, thank you for that. Appreciate the detail and emphasis on putting some clarity around that. And just to underscore, I mean, you're in, year one of a 10-year journey, and those that have any experience really with anything in life, nothing is linear. So I appreciate your commitment to the cause that you and the board have set out for. We're going to talk a little bit about workforce development. That was a major issue and challenge for communities, organizations, and regions, and we are no exception here in Sioux Falls and the surrounding area. We need to not only grow the numbers, but also enhance the skills of our workforce so we can compete in this ever-changing and connected world. Can you take a moment to explain why these? I want to back up a little bit. It seems like as this conversation has continued to unfold on workforce development, how to prepare our young people, there seems to be almost a discussion or debate around the technical education and the liberal arts education, and perhaps they're mutually exclusive. It seems like it's explained in that way. Can you take a moment to explain why these forms of education are not mutually exclusive and why they both serve to advance our communities from a workforce development standpoint?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I'm going to draw on my experience in Congress as well as at Raven Industries and responding to that question now that I'm president of Augustana University. When I was in Congress representing South Dakota, I felt strongly that we needed an all of the above energy policy, right? I was a strong advocate for renewable energy and biofuels, but I also recognized that we had opportunities based on existing markets like for Raven Industries in the fossil fuel sector, and that there were things we could do from a consumer side to incentivize more energy efficiency. So it was an all of the above approach and strategy, and I believe the same should be true in education, particularly here in South Dakota. When I was at Raven, we hired graduates as well as those who had their GED, as well as those who had higher advanced degrees, because a corporate entity needs diverse sets of talent. And what we do to cultivate that talent starts very young. I think we all recognize that, whether you're at Southeast Technical College, whether you're at the University of South Dakota, Augustana University, University of Sioux Falls, Dakota State University. We recognize that we are having too many young people in late elementary, early middle school, who are starting to feel like an advanced degree is not accessible to them. So in partnering within our community, partnering across the state, and with the state as a partner, and others in business and industry, how do we support an all of the above education strategy? And not that anyone then it's not mutually exclusive for any particular graduate. There are certain high school graduates that for various different reasons simply aren't ready or can't access a 4-year degree program, but there is a 2-year pathway. And we have to make more of those 2-year pathways, again, affordable, accessible, and find ways to sustain and partner effectively. We believe at Augustana University that we have a role to play in attracting and retaining intellectual capital for the different types of over 100 major and minor degree programs that we offer that are embedded in the liberal arts, and we can talk more about that too if you'd like, that are preparing servant leaders, right? That are exposing students in our core curriculum to a broad base, a foundation of knowledge and information, but also cultivating a specific set of skills that can serve business and industry, as well as nonprofit organizations on which they will serve on boards, as will graduates from 2-year programs and graduate programs that are focused not just on the workforce needs of a particular organization, but the broader community. And so I get that, you know, it's competitive, just like the energy sector, so is the education sector. But I don't think in a state like South Dakota, you always have to think about it in terms of our microcosm, right, of society and the unique opportunities we may have here, that if we don't do more to collaborate and support young people starting much earlier with mentorship programs, many in our community support, all the way through to find them these different pathways and continue to grow academically and professionally. This is sort of the history of our place. I mean, think about what we have learned from Native American leaders and elders about the rich history of that culture, and then our own ancestors, for those of us that are white, in terms of the settlement of this part of the country. We need each other. We need each other. And so we have to figure out, how can we deepen trust? How can we deepen collaboration? How can we make the investments people are willing to give in higher education go further, rather than trying to grasp them all each for our own institution? And there's clearly, in this hyper-competitive environment now, where business models in higher education are becoming strained, a sense of we've got to get ours. But Augustana wants to lean in with our partners, whether it's MOUs for 3+2 programs with public universities, whether it's pathways with our 2-year colleges, whether it's businesses for certification programs, because we have niches, we have talented faculty who are serving students, but have so much more that they can give if they are resourced, meaning we got to get them help. They can't just keep doing the same thing and then more and more and more. We have to find ways to collaborate across institutions. And I think we've done a good job of that in South Dakota, but there's always more, especially in these types of choppy waters, that I think we need to do and take some risks in doing it.
I appreciate you bringing up the liberal arts, and you are a leader of a liberal arts institution. I'd like to expand further on that if you are willing. Can you talk a little further about the value of a liberal arts education, and specifically the value of an education from Augustana University, an organization been around since 1860?
Yes, and your alma mater since 1862. We're both products of liberal arts education. Yeah. And I think it's important for viewers who may not know, liberal arts has its grounding from centuries past, really in Greek philosophers' notions of logic and language and morality. And so when we think about problem solving in a professional setting, what is the logic, right? And how is your logic informed by data, right? And how do you make decisions and elevate the quality of decision making with the logic of your colleagues and their ability to think critically? Language, in terms of how we communicate with one another effectively and collaborate, communicating through written word, through verbal interaction, the emotional intelligence that comes into play in communicating and collaborating effectively with colleagues to solve unstructured problems. And with morality, it's the guiding ethical principles that every employer hopes as they bring new employees in, has a firm grounding in ethics and doing the right thing in business and for our families and community. And so when you think about liberal arts in that respect, then you take into a setting with a core curriculum that's very deliberate about that core curriculum, about learning outcomes and skills development, such that within a campus community where you have the opportunity to apply and refine skills in a campus community, as you then go out into the world, how you're applying those skills and relationship building, not just in your workplace, but in your family, in your church, in your broader community, in your places of worship. And I think that at Augustana, every school that's a liberal arts university, public or private, kind of has their own specialty, I think. And at Augustana, it's again grounded in our mission and core values. We are inspired by the liberal arts in a Lutheran scholarly tradition. And what that means is a sense of discerning one's vocation, discerning one's calling. And so I think our liberal arts at Augustana we're a place where we take faith seriously. It's accessible. And whether you're someone of a deep faith tradition or not as deep faith tradition or no faith tradition, to be able to serve your neighbor, you need to have an opportunity to learn more about faith, your own and others. And whether that's in any type of context, professionally, but also again in community. And vocation just isn't your job and your career. Vocation is a sense of calling in the family setting, in the community setting, in the setting of where you choose to worship. And so spiritual growth and formation is a part of our liberal arts here at Augustana, and we utilize that element in ways that allow Augustana to be out in the community, whether it's here in Sioux Falls, across South Dakota, or something we're very proud of is that we have well over double the national average of our students and graduates who participate in study abroad programs through our January term, as well as through semester and spring break programming. And so we're really proud of that fact. We think it's a differentiator for our students' experience.
Thank you for that. And yes, 1862, and University of South Dakota, but I do appreciate the emphasis that you have placed on community, because Augustana is a very central part of this community. And so I appreciate that emphasis. The cost of higher education, student loans. With the cost of many four-year colleges and universities significantly outpacing inflation and average pay. You know as well as anybody that there has been much conversation over the last decade regarding the value proposition and or the return on investment of higher education. In many cases, students are financing their education, leading to what many consider a student loan crisis. We read articles every day on this topic. Help us understand, in your view, on that issue, and what are some of the tangible steps in your mind that need to be taken so the next generation isn't saddled with a debt level that just isn't manageable?
I think I want to talk about it in two realms, okay? First is sort of the external support and the internal focus.
Sure.
And so I think every institution of higher learning is working to address cost of instruction, to address the business model and the sustainability of how we price the tuition and room and board. And that is something that we've been doing at Augustana, that I know my colleagues in public and private universities are doing as well. Simultaneous, so that's on the cost side, but on the revenue side, we're all, working overtime to bring in more revenue to support our students and their scholarships. We all partner in different ways, whether directly from our budgets or through our endowments and foundations to support student scholarships, to partner with students and their families to make a college degree more affordable and reduce the overall amount of the debt that any student or family is carrying. But just as we have the work that we're doing internally in our institutions, Pell Grants at the federal level have not kept pace with the cost of tuition. And so whether it's federal Pell Grants and other grants, but also subsidized loans, then we really do need South Dakota as one of the last states to not have a significant needs-based scholarship program. We've been working hard at it with the private universities and public universities, working with legislators on Dakota's Promise, but we need to do more and sooner, because the bridge is just getting too tough for a lot of students, and the investment will pay off. The research bears that out in terms of investing to help support someone achieve a 2-4-year advanced degree versus what happens when we aren't making those investments. And again, how the state can partner, just as we do with other scholarships that follow the student, as long as they choose a college or university in the state of South Dakota. So those are really all the levers. But there's another one that I would put out, given this unique viewership we have here, and that's our business and industry partners. And when I was in Congress, we modernized the GI Bill so that in the post 9/11 GI Bill to serve veterans and their families that served in Iraq and Afghanistan, we made for the first time veterans education benefits transferable to spouses and family members. And I went to high school with people who served an additional tour or two, in part to get those additional education benefits so that they could make them available to transfer. One of the first students I met at Augustana University told me that he actually received from his dad's service tuition benefits to attend Augustana. So this is a really important public policy change that was enacted a number of years ago, that I think if we ask business to think about retention, recruitment and retention of talent, and the budgets they set aside for tuition assistance, could they consider structuring, or at least exploring, an opportunity of restructuring tuition assistance benefits programs such that perhaps tuition assistance or a certain segment of dollars could be established when their children are very young, and it's retained. It's a retention tool, perhaps, of talent, such that fund builds up, so that there is, for families whose estimated family contribution may be really small, there's this pool of funds that employers' tuition assistance benefits programs would support. Now, again, having served at Raven Industries, generous corporate citizen here in Sioux Falls, I don't have a proposal ready for anyone to review today. I'm just asking people to think about it, explore it, consider, what we did in the public policy context for veterans to determine if this is something where even to pilot a program might be beneficial, because we really do need federal, state government, but also business and industry, in addition to our institutional alumni support, to be able to continue to make investments in the next generation.
There's a lot to talk about just on that subject. We could probably fill an hour, certainly. But I, since we got about 20 minutes left, I want to touch on a few more important topics. And the first one is race, diversity, and socioeconomic status. The conversation around race and equality has been elevated, and it's been done so appropriately, frankly, over the last 60 days since the death of George Floyd. Sioux Falls is becoming increasingly diverse, and by 2030, the Sioux Falls School District is expected to achieve a minority majority in K-12. Can you help us understand what leadership role Augustana University is playing when it comes to race and diversity? And what other steps need to be taken, perhaps, to educational opportunities to all members of our community, regardless of their race or socioeconomic status?
We've been doing a lot. And again, the core values and mission of Augustana make us a setting in which we can, we hope, partner effectively, whether it's through K through 12, whether it's through business and industry, the faith community, others that are looking to address racial injustice and enhance intercultural awareness and understanding. At Augustana, my colleagues and I worked very hard in my first year at the President's Council level, but working with colleagues across campus to finalize a diversity and inclusion plan. Mark Blackburn, our Dean of Students here at Augustana, well known to some of your viewers, I'm sure, given his football playing days at USD and his leadership here in Sioux Falls. But he helped form the foundation for that plan, and the President's Council adopted the first diversity and inclusion plan for Augustana in January of 2019. That plan is available on our website and is integrated into the Viking Bold strategic plan and our journey to 2030. We also hired, under Mark's leadership, our first full-time director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Willette Capers joined us a year and a half ago from South Carolina. She has many years of experience in higher education, and she has dramatically expanded diversity, equity, inclusion programming on campus, as well as partnering with others in the Sioux Falls community. We are trying to approach these topics, always keeping our students in the front of our minds. Last year, we were blessed to have our first student of color and international student, Luca Amayo, serve as our Student Association president. And, you know, we learn so much from our students, and we look to empower them to be voices, not just with their peers, but with all of us in the campus community and broader. And he and his vice president, Audrey Cope, a Truman Scholar, just announced a few months ago from Rapid City, South Dakota, Luca from Kenya, really led a number of important discussions in our student body about race relations, how we serve international students, and asking administrators and faculty to ask some tough questions around how we do things, how we might do them differently. We also have a number of people on campus, including Jen Jacobs, our head volleyball coach, who are certified trainers in the Intercultural Development Inventory. This is a training program for intercultural competence that global organizations in business and industry and nonprofits use. And we're excited about how many people have been actively engaged in the IDI trainings, as well as the diversity advocacy trainings that Willette Capers has been facilitating. But it's also important that as a university, that we look for those opportunities proactively to partner with others in Sioux Falls who I know are committed to addressing injustices, knowing that we are all lifelong learners, and we have opportunities to really listen deeply to the life experiences of those who have different backgrounds. And as you cited the statistics for the school system here in Sioux Falls, having a son who's going to start middle school and went to a very diverse elementary school at Eugene Field Elementary here in Sioux Falls, I really think we need to be very deliberate and intentional as we prepare to serve students, given what we see across the country, what we have now come to understand more deeply as it relates to problems that perhaps we think aren't as manifested here as in other parts of the country. But if we aren't intentional and deliberate about addressing it now, we could unfortunately experience more tensions, more challenges in ways that I don't think honor and respect the rich traditions that we have going back, again, decades and centuries here in Sioux Falls and certainly across South Dakota. There's always more work to be done. We know that's true in our own state when you look at our highest population of minority members, citizens, and that's Native American tribes and residents on our sovereign Native tribes. So I think that we're doing a good job at Augustana of controlling what we can control, which is training ourselves to be more interculturally aware and well-versed on theory and practice. And we do plan on being part of the Braver Angels initiative that some folks started back in late 2016, early 2017. And it's called With Malice Toward None. And so I'd encourage your viewers to go take a look at that as well. We're going to be hosting that. We have leaders across campus, including Pastor Ann Rosendale of Campus Ministry, who will be leading that initiative here at Augustana.
Do you see opportunities in the future through Viking Bold, to help serve the efforts of Sioux Falls in the greater region, so we can be an example to the rest of the country?
We certainly have offered to do that and have been taken up on that offer, both by those in the public sector, the private sector. Colleges and universities are unique ecosystems. And if all of us and all of our viewers, if we all take ourselves back to when we were 18, 19, 20, these are really formative years. And I think that there are ways, and just as Condoleezza Rice, who was our Bow Forum speaker a couple of years ago, stated, and she's at Stanford now, Generation Z is a very public-minded generation. And what we saw in Sioux Falls, what we've seen elsewhere in South Dakota and across the country, there are a lot of young people, millennials and Generation Z, that are peacefully protesting, that are standing up for each other, because they recognize that their future is bound up in each other's future. And they know that there's more work to be done. Every generation there is. And the more we learn, the more we listen, the more we understand, the more we don't get defensive, the more we ask tough questions. Sometimes that's easier to do in a campus university setting, right? But we can take that to others, or others can come and get a dose of being back in college, right? In our setting, and taking advantage of this really wonderful programming. I was part of a book group, summer book read here in Augustana's campus that will let Capers led and about 70 or 80 other colleagues on a book called The Racial Healing Handbook. And I would recommend it to all of your viewers. The framework that she provides, whether you're a white person or person of color, and how we think about things in our early formative years and socialization or experience that we've had, it really helps take down walls of misunderstanding over time, and provides a really wonderful framework for thinking through these really tough but really important issues.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. Well, no conversation these days is complete without a discussion about COVID. So we'll talk a little bit about that now. Obviously, 4 months ago, the world changed for all of us. And one of the most significant changes was how education was delivered. Talk to us about those last couple weeks in March.
Do I have to? Woo.
Yeah, big question.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, it's amazing to think what we were doing and the decisions we had to make on such quick timetables, right?
Mhm.
And so from the decision to extend spring break to then uh, extend break through Easter to what happened for the full semester, but then we were doing that really to provide some level of control over our campus context and local conditions, right?
Yeah.
Informed by our local conditions. And yet we kind of knew sort of where this was heading. So that's different from where we are in the fall. I can talk about that in a minute too. And so to ask faculty to, in a matter of 10 days and less, to take curriculum and to modify that instruction to be delivered virtually was a really heavy lift. But as faculty do, they rose to the occasion. And I think the faculty here at Augustana were helped by that for a few different reasons, not just because we're a liberal arts university that prioritizes teaching excellence and we have a student to faculty ratio that is admirable and works well for us. But we had, under the leadership of Dr. Colin Irvin, our provost, established a Center for Excellence in Teaching and Scholarship a number of months before. And we had some of our faculty already who were delivering what we called our exponential mentoring to use different technological platforms for the delivery of curriculum. And so we had started some of that in the fall, thank goodness, right? That was the blessing then, where we had more people familiar with how we might be able to utilize these technologies and platforms and get people up to speed as quickly as possible, supported by academic administrators, really talented IT and library staff who are facilitating this training and programming. And then the provost, Dr. Irvin, was hoping to have about a dozen faculty sign up for a course design fellowship this summer to sort of take that even further. But we've had over 80 faculty participate in that fellowship this summer, just because it's essential. They want to elevate their standard of excellence in teaching with these different hybrid virtual settings to have successful execution of our Viking Flex plan for the fall. But it was a rough 10 weeks. There's no sugarcoating that.
Yeah.
And yet we navigated it in a way that, because again, we rely on each other, that's the sense of this place, that we got through it. And I actually think that the quality of our relationships, even in these virtual settings, which can be quite intimate, because you're allowed into people's spaces and homes and seeing families. And I think that we knew that it was a rough go, but we trusted one another. And that's helped us in our planning in what has been a very busy summer, getting ready for the fall as well.
Yeah. You know, the administration and the faculty, they're all members of this community. And, you know, we care about them. How are they doing? How are they doing? It's been a tough 4 months. How are they doing?
They're a resilient group of people, a loving group of people. But look, it's been hard. And I think they're anxious, as we all are anxious. Yeah. And so I appreciate you asking. I think they're excited. You know, we've done so much planning around how to have safe learning and living environments. So when all of us got together to do a modified gauntlet for our graduates, and we were out in the Elman Center parking lot instead of over at the convention center, and we had on our masks and we were out there and the students were driving through, that was therapeutic for all of us individually and as a community. And I think we're all looking forward to those types of settings, safely distanced with appropriate masking protocols and the like, to be with each other in a non-virtual setting. And so I do know that faculty and our administrators and support staff are excited. We always are when we get this close to the start of the fall semester, but we are all have a little bit elevated level, not a little bit, we have an elevated sense of anxiety because of this pandemic. And that is to be understood, that is to be respected. And we have town halls with faculty and staff and students and parents this week and next week. And we need to listen, and we need to continue to over communicate how we're going to do this, knowing that we will refine as we need to, we will share information as we must, because again, the quality of our relationships will see us through this. And we are committed to taking care of one another. And so there is some strain, there is some apprehension, but these are people committed to students, and they are willing to put our protocols to the test because they know that an impressive amount of work has been done by many of their colleagues across campus, and they know the type of students that we attract we will work to share health education programming and encourage best judgment possible in every setting. But thank you for asking. I think as a community, we are strong, we are resilient, we're going to have a good fall.
I can see and tell how passionate you are about your team, and it's important that leaders demonstrate that passion and those relationships that get built and have been built. And now you're looking into 2020, 2021 school year. What work and decisions are being made now? We're getting really close to the beginning of the new school year. And how is the team serving the Augustana? How is that team doing now as it gets closer to opening day?
Yeah, thanks. We've had a great group of people that formed a task force in late April, pull the threads together of a lot of our thoughts of how we do fall semester. They very quickly analyzed about 20 different scenarios, recommended the Viking Flex plan, and then we quickly got to work to enlist the willing to serve on some working groups and sub-working groups. I mean, a really complex undertaking, but they've just, and we're learning more, we're unturning more stones, we're refining, but from where we were to where we are today, again, we're ready for students to move in a modified fashion August 20th, and we're sharing more details. But this is, again, cross-section across the campus of people dedicated throughout a summer to figure this out and to share information openly, effectively, to gather more resources, to understand what best practices, how certain policies or technologies are evolving for safety and for effective delivery of the curriculum. So I think they're doing great. They were empowered by the President's Council to tackle this hard work. They have met every expectation. They've exceeded expectations. They have just been tremendous in their focus, in their critical thinking, in the communications we've developed. And I look forward to getting to the implementation phase. We've had a few test beds for that this summer with our summer research labs, student athletes and recreation services, and a few international students still living with us here on campus. And we've been doing well testing these protocols. So I'll be sharing with parents that we have every confidence that these protocols will work to keep their children safe and learning as they are intended to learn here at Augustana, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom.
No doubt, no doubt. The last question we have, about 2 more minutes here, Stephanie, but this isn't about the university. This isn't about higher education, but it's important. The state of South Dakota ratified the 19th Amendment on December 4th of 1919. And we are currently celebrating the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. Tell us more about that celebration and your involvement with it, and maybe what you learned about the sacrifices of those that achieved that victory 100 years ago.
Thanks for this question. Yes, it is an important anniversary. My grandmother was born 10 years before ratification of the 19th Amendment. So it's still recent history when we think about that. She was born in 1909. But I want to commend everyone who's been involved. The governor put together a terrific group of people for the Her Voice, Her Vote, Her Voice campaign. I've been happy to participate in the oral history project, in the interviews with South Dakota Public Broadcasting, but I've been more excited and inspired by our campus committee of people who are planning events here on campus around Constitution Day on September 17th, I believe it is, to really celebrate this history, to deepen our awareness of suffrage in our country and the importance of voting rights and our system of government and active participation. So it's just been heartwarming to connect with a lot of women across the state, to share our stories as we've been doing. I'm working with fellow women presidents at our colleges and universities on some things that we can do, as it relates to in our leadership positions, how we really view the right to vote and leading to opportunities to have the right to lead in ways that are meaningful as we open more doors and overcome barriers that do still exist, so that each generation of women and how our young women and men are socialized are such that, again, the enfranchisement is full, that it is adding even more value, and that we are enriching our democratic traditions by celebrating this important history.
Yeah, and and more work to be done. I hope that we can keep this fire ignited as we get through the fog of COVID, so it continues to be front and center.
Yes.
Thank you, Stephanie, for your leadership at Augustana University and service to our community, state, and region, and country. You have a history of taking on some big things, and we are grateful to you that you are at the wheel of an important institution in our region during this time. I hope you'll come back from time to time and give us an update on how things are progressing with Augustana Bold and the other work that you're doing. Fellow Rotarians and guests, please join us next week for Rotary Reconnected, Building a Better Community program. We will be discussing the Sioux 52 initiative, and we'll be joined again by Bonnie Herreri and Police Lieutenant John Toom. This will be an important discussion as we dive deeper into mentoring and what that can mean for this community. Thank you very much for attending today. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings.